Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode where I will talk about dressmaking and more specifically about sewing techniques that I use. As you probably know by now, if you have been following along, I am a Danish fashion designer and pattern maker with over 25 years of experience. I'm here to share my knowledge and help you create your own personal patterns so you can experience the feeling of clothes that actually fits, no matter your size. When you know the basics of pattern making and design, there are endless possibilities to create whatever you want. So take a look at my previous videos and download the size chart for free to get started. And follow along if you want to make your own clothes. I realized that I might have been too eager and moving on too fast in this video series. So today I'm going to slow a little bit down and talk about the sewing process step by step. For some of you it might be obvious, for others maybe not so much. So when you have created your own dress pattern with all the seam allowances, the next step is to sew a fitting model in some cheap cotton fabric and try it on. Let me show you how. So this is the basic pattern that I use and that I went through in a previous video. So what I did here, I closed the bust incision to open up a dart here on the side of the front piece. I changed the neckline to a boat neckline, which is very classical and Jackie-like. On the back piece, I cut up the line to the shoulder here, closed the armhole incision so it opened up for the shoulder dart. I added some extra width here at the bottom for a slit on the mid back. And I added seam allowance all over. So this is ready to be cut out in the fabric. So after I cut out the fabric, the cheap cotton fabric for the fitting model, I sewed it in this order. First, I marked down all the incision and darts on the front and here on the back piece, shoulder darts and waist darts. I pressed them all towards the side seam. Then I placed the zipper and basted it down and sewed it from the front to be able to close it at the fitting. After that, I continued with the shoulder seams, which I again pressed towards the back. And then at last, the side seams and pressing them towards the back too. And finally, I hemmed the fitting model so it's ready to try on. And After the fitting, with all the adjustments, you alter the pattern or make a new one if there's a lot of corrections. Before cutting the real fabric, you should iron or steam it depending on the quality. Place the pattern pieces perpendicularly on the grain line and pin them down. Cut them out meticulously. Again, mark the incision and darts with either thread or chalk and sew them very precisely. And sew it in the same order as the fitting model. So in this particular cocktail dress, I used facing as a finishing. You can also line the dress completely, of course, but because of the fabric that is quite thick, I decided to only use a facing. That means when you do that, you have to wait with the mid-back seam and the zipper until you added this facing to the dress. So it's open all the way here, which means that you only sew the shoulders on the dress and the facing, press them apart, place the facing front to front on the dress. You sew all around the neck line and you sew from the side seam around the shoulder and down on the other side. And then you press the seams apart and make cuts into the curve so it has a nice even finish when you turn it inside out. Then you take the back piece and try to put it through the shoulder. It can be a little bit tricky if the shoulder is small like here, but it is possible. And then you have the facing to the back side. After that, you sew inside the side of the facing, continuing down on the dress, and sew the sides together. And at the end, you press so you have it nicely even. And before you sew it in, it might be a good idea to add some interfacing, some iron-on interfacing to stabilize it and to keep this shape nicely. The same you can do here at the slit for it to stabilize it and keep it nice before you stitch it down with invisible stitches here on the back side. The other option you have is to line it completely, which means that you sew another dress in the lining fabric, and to have a nice finishing in the armholes again and at the neckline, you wait with the zipper and the mid back so it's open. Again, you sew the shoulders together on each dress and you pull this back part through the shoulder, but before you press it and cut again into the curved lines so it has an even, so it's even when you turn it inside out. So the lining is actually an exact copy of the dress, just a few centimeters shorter. And again, I added some iron-on interfacing around the neck, around the armholes, and here at the slit in the mid-back. But before you iron on this interfacing, you should actually make a sample to see how it interacts with the fabric. And of course, there is another way to add interfacing, like in this sample here. This is a new project, but because of the fabric that is very loosely woven, I secured the back piece of cotton with some iron-on interfacing, and then I basted it together and overlocked it so the two layers are staying stable when I sew it. So that's another way to do it. Here I used cotton, but if it's a finer fabric like silk, you should probably use some silk organza and bast it on before you overlock or sew it together. This is about it. I hope this explanation was helpful. If you want to learn more about all of this, check out my blog. The link is in the description below. And if you have any questions and problems, just let me know. There are no stupid questions. I'm happy to help. Suggestions for related content are also welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you like what I'm doing. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.